Have you ever stood in the heart of a major city and just listened? Even in the dead of night, there's a hum, a constant, low-frequency thrum of electricity, of distant traffic, of life. It's the heartbeat of our civilization. Now, imagine that heartbeat stops. Not fades away, but simply stops. This isn't a story about how humanity disappears. We're not going to get into the why. Instead, we're going to embark on a thought experiment. We're going to wind the clock forward 100 years and witness the slow, silent, and spectacular reclamation of our greatest creations by the one force that outlasts everything: nature. What happens to our concrete and glass jungles when the zookeepers are gone for good? The first few hours would be the strangest. For a moment, nothing much would change. The cities would stand just as we left them, monuments of glass, steel, and stone, waiting for a population that would never return. But the silence would be the first true sign. The absence of our noise would be a physical presence, an unnerving quiet that would allow the whisper of the wind around a skyscraper-esque corner to sound like a shout. Within days, the first domino falls. The power grid. Our world runs on a constant, frantic ballet of maintenance and supply. Coal-fired and natural gas plants would run out of fuel. Automated safety systems would shut down nuclear reactors one by one, encasing them in their concrete tombs. The solar panels lining rooftops and sprawling across deserts would continue to generate power, but without anyone to manage the grid, to store and distribute that energy. They would become useless. Islands of electricity in a sea of darkness. The great domes, marvels of engineering, would continue to let water thunder through their turbines, but their systems, too, would eventually fail without human oversight. One night a final substation would overload, and the last city district would flicker and die. For the first time in over a century, the world's cities would be plunged into a profound, primordial darkness. The only light would be the cold, indifferent glow of the moon and the brilliant, unobscured tapestry of the stars, now visible over places like Manhattan and Hong Kong in a way no living human has ever seen. This darkness heralds the arrival of the most relentless agent of change. We think of our cities as solid, permanent fixtures. They're not. They are thirsty, and we are their life support. Take New York City. Every single day, we pump over 13 million gallons of water out of the subway system. The moment the power dies, the pumps stop. Within 36 hours, the tunnels would begin to flood. The intricate web of the subway, the city's steel arteries, would become a subterranean river system, dark and silent. Water would seep into the foundations of the towering skyscrapers above, beginning a slow, patient process of erosion from below. Basements of buildings, underground parking garages, and utility tunnels all across the world would become stagnant, lightless lakes, breeding grounds for mold, fungus, and bacteria. While the world below drowns, a crisis unfolds on the surface. Our pets, millions of them, trapped in apartments and houses. It's a sad, unavoidable part of this story. The most resourceful cats and smaller dog breeds might escape through open windows or pet doors, but many would be trapped. Those that do get out would face a brutal new reality. Domesticated dogs, bred for companionship, would struggle. Many would starve, but some would form feral packs, rediscovering their ancestral instincts, hunting in the new urban wilderness. Cats, being closer to their wild origins, would fare much better. They are born survivors. And the explosion in the rodent population, now unchecked by our And what about the zoos? As electronic locks fail and keepers no longer make their rounds, enclosures would begin to break down. A rusted latch, a fallen tree, a power outage to an electric fence, that's all it would take. Imagine a herd of zebra galloping down the Champs in Paris, or a flock of vibrant pink flamingos taking up residence in the flooded atriums of a Dubai shopping mall. Lions, tigers, and bears, once apex predators in their far-off lands, would now stalk a new kind of jungle, one made of concrete canyons and steel trees. Many of these transplanted animals wouldn't survive the foreign climates, but some would. They would adapt, carving out new territories. And for a few generations, our cities would become the world's most bizarre and chaotic wildlife parks. After the first decade, the face of the city begins to visibly change. The initial agent of this change isn't a wrecking ball, but a single drop of water. In colder climates, the freeze-thaw cycle becomes a relentless engine of destruction. Water seeps into a tiny crack in a road. It freezes, expands, and widens the crack. The next day it thaws, and more water gets in. Winter after winter, this process repeats, acting like a million tiny jackhammers. Potholes would yawn into craters. Roadways would fracture and buckle. Sidewalks would become treacherous mosaics of broken concrete. Above, our proudest structures would begin to show their age. Steel, the skeleton of the modern city, has a fatal weakness. Without the protective coatings of paint we constantly reapply, the metal begins to oxidize. Bridges, once symbols of connection, would bleed rust-colored streaks down their supports. The immense steel cables holding suspension bridges aloft, each a finely tuned instrument, would begin to corrode. Individual wires would snap, one by one, with a high-pitched ping, lost in the wind. And inside the concrete itself, a disease would be spreading. The steel reinforcing bars, the rebar, would rust. As it rusts, it expands, exerting immense pressure on the surrounding concrete, cracking it from the inside out. Architects call it concrete cancer, and it would be eating our world from within. The city for the first time would start to sound old, groaning and creaking with the wind, its mighty bones beginning to ache. As the years tick by, this groaning and creaking becomes the city's new language. It's the sound of our absence. By year 20, the initial invasion of nature is no longer subtle. It's a full-scale siege. The pioneers are the hardiest of plants, the ones we call weeds. Their seeds are masters of travel, riding the wind for miles, getting caught in the fur of a passing feral dog, or carried in the belly of a bird. They find purchase in the most unlikely of places, a crack in a monument's plaza, the accumulated grit in a rooftop gutter, the silty deposit left by a receding puddle on a 6-lane highway. Buddleia the butterfly bush becomes the king of this new concrete kingdom. It can grow almost anywhere, its roots strong enough to prise open brickwork and mortar. It will sprout from the sides of buildings, creating bizarre, hanging gardens hundreds of feet in the air. On the ground, the asphalt and concrete that once seemed so absolute are revealed for what they are: a thin, brittle crust. The relentless pressure from below, from saplings of birch, ailanthus the tree of heaven, and maple, begins to heave and shatter the pavement. What were once roads become green-striped ribbons. The painted lane dividers still faintly visible beneath a carpet of clover and grass. The world's great boulevards and avenues are slowly being reclaimed, not by an opposing army, but by a patient, persistent meadow. Ivy, a plant we once used for ornamental purposes, becomes an architectural menace. It cloaks entire buildings in a green shroud, its tendrils working their way into every crevice. While beautiful as green embrace is a death grip, the ivy holds moisture against the walls, accelerating decay, and its powerful roots tear apart the very fabric of the structures it climbs. The city's famous brownstones and brick-faced apartments begin to look as though they are being consumed, their sharp architectural lines soft and blurred by a living, breathing blanket of green. And what of the glass giants, the skyscrapers that defined our skylines? Their greatest vulnerability isn't their height, but their skin. The synthetic rubber and silicone seals that hold the vast panes of glass in place are not designed to last forever. Battered by decades of unfiltered UV radiation, rain, and temperature swings, they dry out, crack, and fail. A single pane of glass, weighing hundreds of pounds, will loosen from its mooring high on the 80th floor. It will hang for a moment, then slide free, tumbling end over end, catching the light before shattering on the street below with a sound that echoes 4 miles through the quiet canyons. This is the beginning of a cascade. The opening allows wind and rain to pour directly into the building's interior. Office spaces become the once pristine carpets become a sodden, moldy substrate for fungi and ferns. Water pools on the floors, its weight adding immense strain to the structure. It leaks down through elevator shafts and ventilation systems, creating internal waterfalls that flow for days after a storm. Each shattered window is an open wound, inviting nature deep into the heart of our tallest creations. The exteriors of these glass towers, once gleaming in uniform, become pockmarked and scarred, like an old face, with dark, gaping holes where the windows have fallen away. By year 50, the transformation is profound. The world is a much wetter place without us. Our storm drains, now clogged with decades of debris and vegetation, have completely failed. Cities built in low-lying areas or along coastlines are in a constant state of flood. London's Victoria Embankment is gone, submerged beneath a wider. The lower half of Manhattan is a brackish marsh, seawater having pushed far inland through the now-defunct flood barriers and tunnels. In these waterlogged environments, steel rusts at an astonishing rate. The iconic red of the Golden Gate Bridge has long since peeled away, revealing the corroding steel beneath. The immense weight of the road deck, combined with the relentless snapping of corroded suspension cables, puts the entire structure under unimaginable stress. One day, after a particularly violent storm, a critical failure will occur. It won't be a sudden explosion, but a groan, a buck, and then a slow, majestic, and terrifying collapse as a section of the bridge tears free and plunges into the bay. One by one, over the decades, the world's great bridges will fall, severing the connections we built, turning peninsulas back into islands, and making rivers impassable. The suburbs have fared even worse. Houses made of wood are an open invitation for insects and rot. Termites and carpenter ants, no longer held in check by pesticides, feast on the wooden frames. Roofs, burdened by water and debris, begin to sag and then collapse, exposing the interiors to the elements. A sapling that took root in a clogged gutter 30 years ago is now a mature tree, its trunk growing straight through what was once a child's bedroom. Wildlife thrives here. A family of raccoons lives in the attic of a collapsed Cape Cod, A black bear hibernates in the basement of a Tudor-style home. The manicured lawns have been replaced by thickets of thorny bushes and wildflowers, and the asphalt driveways are almost completely invisible beneath a thick layer of moss and soil. The suburbs have dissolved back into the temperate woodlands and grasslands from which they were carved. Our homes have become little more than moss-covered mounds, fertile ground for the forests of tomorrow. The city is no longer just silent and empty. It's wild and alive, a new ecosystem built upon the bones of our own. By the 75-year mark, the war is over, and nature has won. The city is no longer a human habitat with plants in it. It is a forest with ruins in it. Mature oak, maple, and pine trees, some over 50 feet tall, now form a dense canopy over what were once bustling avenues. Their roots, thick as pythons, have completely demolished the underground infrastructure, collapsing sewer lines and subway tunnels, creating sinkholes that have become ponds teeming with frogs and insects. The sunlight that filters down to the former street level is dappled in green, and the air smells not of exhaust fumes and hot pavement, but of damp earth, decaying leaves, and wildflower pollen. To walk through this new wilderness would be to navigate a bizarre and treacherous landscape. The streets are now soft, uneven forest floors, but with hidden dangers. A lush patch of moss might conceal a rusted manhole cover, ready to give way. The remnants of cars are little more than hollow vine-encrusted shells, their tires long since rotted away, their metal bodies returning to the earth as rust. They look like strange metallic boulders dotting the forest floor. The soundscape is now rich and layered. The constant rush of the wind through the new forest canopy, the chatter of squirrels, the piercing cry of a hawk circling overhead, and at night, the howl of a pack of feral dogs, their calls echoing eerily between the skeletal remains of buildings. But what about the truly massive structures? The steel and concrete mountains we called skyscrapers. Many are still standing, but they are hollowed out, decrepit skeletons. They have become vertical ecosystems, what ecologists call a biocline. Different species live at different levels. The flooded lower floors are home to amphibians and fish. The middle floors, sheltered from the wind, are nesting grounds for countless birds and bats. The highest, most exposed levels are claimed by raptors like peregrine falcons, who find the crumbling ledges to be perfect modern-day cliffs. Now, let's push forward to the full century mark. For one of these giants, time is finally up. Let's picture a famous landmarker, perhaps a 90-story behemoth that once defined a skyline. For 100 years, it has been weakened. Its foundations are the concrete cancer we spoke of has ravaged its internal supports, the rebar expanding and shattering the concrete core from within. Entire floors have been transformed into wetlands by a century of accumulated rainwater. A large tree, its roots burrowed deep into the collected soil of the 60th floor, acts like a sail in the wind, putting a constant, twisting pressure on the weakened frame. Then comes the perfect storm. Not a hurricane necessarily, just a storm with unusually strong, sustained winds. The building groans a sound louder than any it has made before. It's a metallic scream of tortured steel. A series of sharp, explosive cracks echo from deep within its core. As major support columns finally fail, it doesn't explode outwards. Instead, it begins to pancake. The upper floors collapse onto the ones below, each impact creating a chain reaction, a slow, thundering cascade of concrete and steel. It's a process that takes maybe 20 seconds, but it feels like an eternity. A colossal cloud of dust-pulverized concrete, mold spores, and a century of settled grim billows out, blanketing the surrounding forest for miles. When the dust finally settles, the iconic skyscraper is gone. In its place is a new mountain, a multi-story pile of twisted rebar, shattered concrete, and debris. The reign of the skyscraper is over. This new man-made mountain won't stay barren for long. It becomes a new kind of habitat. The rubble pile is full of crevices and caves, perfect dens for foxes, weasels, and other small mammals. Hardy pioneer plants will colonize the slopes of debris, and, within a few more decades, this monument to our ambition will become a green hill, its origins only betrayed by the unnatural angles of the rebar jutting out like broken bones. But even as nature triumphs, our ghost remains. A century is not long enough to erase our most stubborn creations. Our chemical legacy persists. The soil of this new urban forest is laced with heavy metals lead from old paint and gasoline, cadmium and mercury. Rivers and streams may run clear, but their sediment holds a toxic record of our industrial past. And then there is the plastic. It's everywhere. Broken down by sun and friction into smaller and smaller pieces, it has become a permanent part of the geology. Microplastics are in the soil the trees grow in the water the animals drink, and in the very bodies of the creatures who now call this place home. It is a beautiful, thriving, but poisoned paradise. The new nature has inherited our trash, incorporating it into its own flesh and blood. It's a sobering reminder that even in our complete absence, our mark is not so easily erased. We have not just built cities. We have fundamentally and perhaps irrevocably changed the chemistry of the planet itself. The world has moved on without us, but it will forever carry the scars of our time here. And so, after 100 years, the city is gone, yet it is everywhere. It has become a ghost, a framework upon which a new, wild world is being built. But even ghosts leave traces, and some of our creations are far more stubborn than others. While the glass towers have crumbled and the wooden houses have returned to the soil, our monuments of stone would still stand, like ancient relics from a forgotten age. Imagine walking through the dense forest that now covers Washington, D.C. You push past a curtain of hanging vines, and suddenly find yourself at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial. The marble is stained, cracked, and covered in a tapestry of moss and lichen. A tree grows from a fissure in the steps, but the form is unmistakable. Inside, Abraham Lincoln sits on his throne, his stone face impassive, looking out over a sea of green treetops where the reflecting pool once shimmered. He is a king in a wild and silent kingdom. Similarly, the great cathedrals of Europe, the granite-faced government buildings, and the stone pyramids of ages past teach us a simple lesson. These structures, built with ancient techniques and materials, would outlast our modern marvels by centuries, becoming the true final headstones of our civilization. And what of our art? In a small, overgrown plaza, a bronze statue of a forgotten hero on a horse rears up, its surface turned a vibrant, almost living green by a century of oxidization. It's no longer surrounded by pigeons and tourists, but by woodpeckers and grazing deer, a silent, metallic guardian of the forest. High above, the stainless steel spire of a building like the Chrysler Building would still catch the light. Tarnished and battered, but largely intact, a strange silver needle rising from the endless green canopy. These objects, made of more noble or resistant materials, would become the enigmatic artifacts for any future intelligence to discover. Hints of the complex, artistic, and ambitious creatures who once ruled this planet. The most enduring legacy, however, might be the one we can't see. For over a century and a half, we've been broadcasting our existence into the cosmos. Radio signals, television broadcasts, radar pings, all of them have been traveling outwards at the speed of light. Our first faint signals have already washed over dozens of star systems. By the time our last skyscraper crumbles into dust, our cultural ghosts, the sound of our music, the stories of our lives, the declarations of our wars, and our hopes for peace, will be hundreds of light years away, a bubble of information expanding into the silent void. The Voyager probes, with their golden records, will be sailing on through interstellar space, carrying a message from a species that may no longer exist on its home world. It is a strange and humbling thought. Our most permanent monument is not made of stone or steel, but of ephemeral waves and a golden disk cast into the cosmic ocean. Our final echo is a whisper to the stars. This journey over 100 years isn't meant to be a grim prediction. It's not a celebration of humanity's end. It's a thought experiment in humility and perspective. It forces us to see our world, our creations, and ourselves from a different angle. It shows us that we are not separate from nature, but a profoundly powerful part of either force capable of shaping the entire planet, for better and for worse. The story of our cities without us reveals the incredible resilience of life, its patient and relentless drive to grow, to cover, and to reclaim. There is a strange and undeniable beauty in that image of a wild, green city, but it also underscores the magnificence of what we have built. To raise a skyscraper, to build a bridge that spans miles of water, to create a global network of light and information, these are acts of They are a testament to our ingenuity, our cooperation, and our audacity. This thought experiment shouldn't make us anti-human. It should make us more thoughtfully human. What do you think? What landmark in your city do you believe would be the last one standing? What part of this 100-year timeline surprised you the most? I would love to read your thoughts and ideas in the comments section below. This is a topic with endless possibilities, and everyone imagines it differently. If you found this journey through time as fascinating as I did, please show your support by giving this video a like. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the biggest questions we can ask. In the end, this story isn't about absence, but about presence. It reminds us that our time here is precious and our impact is profound. Perhaps the greatest lesson from imagining a world without us is a deeper appreciation for the world we have right now, the bustling cities, the incredible technology, and the shared responsibility to be wise stewards of this beautiful, fragile planet. It's a reminder to build things that last, to live in a way that respects the natural forces we coexist with, and to cherish the simple, profound fact that we are here, together, right now. Thanks for watching.